I have 8 numbers here. You're going to pick 3 of them, and each correspond to a random question I have.
Oh my goodness.
First number of 8.
8.
Oh, I like this one. A scene swap. If you could swap roles with another actor in Handmaid's Tale, specifically to do a scene of theirs, what scene would you choose and why?
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you know, this is kind of inspired by the panel that we just recently did. I think because I hated watching the clips so much of when Serena takes June and leaves her locked in the car while she goes and sees Hannah, and June watches from the car, and then Serena gets back in the car and she still hasn't let June out, and June has that big giant speech and she calls her every name under the sun of just the anger, the rage, the horror. And I remember thinking on the day, oh my gosh, it was so hard not to bawl my eyes out and just weep for this woman and just terror. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can't be this person. I'm not this girl. I want to be that one.
I honestly feel like one of the coolest experiments ever would be taking any scene that you and Lizzie are in together and having you just swap.
God, that would be really fun.
Oh, I would enjoy that quite a bit, especially with some of the scenes you get in season 6.
Oh my gosh, that would be really funny. It would be really funny to do that. But yeah, that was definitely sheerly because it just felt so uncomfortable in that space of being that cruel person. It was so horrible.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'll get it.
Plus, it'd be really fun to just lay out all that, you know. That particular speech is just get it all out.
Nice release right there.
Nice release for the day.
All right, I need your second number of 8.
Okay, let's go 2.
Number 2 is a fun one. I like this question quite a bit. Can you tell me a seemingly small everyday thing that human beings do that's the most difficult to replicate believably as an actor? Like the examples I often give are like fake sneezing, fake waking up, something like that.
Oh, yeah, I would say waking up is definitely one of them. Yeah, waking up or any kind of surprise face, like like and then you're doing it 100 times. It's like you gotta really, I don't know what it is. There's a technique. There's definitely a technique.
Someone once told me extreme joy, and like that kind of reminds me of the surprise thing too.
Yeah, extreme joy. I remember having a teacher at school, not anything to do with acting, except I think he fancied himself an actor, say in order to laugh, you got to blow all the air out and and then he demonstrated this like very natural laugh. Oh, that's how you laugh on cameras.
I'm gonna like go home and be alone in the apartment and try to breathe out and laugh now.
And then
just like that.
Just like that, yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So natural.
All right, your final pick of Dicey Questions.
I'll go with 1.
Oh, now you got a real serious one.
Oh.
This is called high-low. Can you give me one audition high you've experienced, and then not necessarily on audition low, but something you learned in the audition space that would apply to future auditions?
I mean, a high and a low. Okay, I'm going to tell a story that I think has both in it. Because it was a low, it turned into a high.
I'll take that.
I remember when I auditioned for the Broadway play that I did in New York, and I grew up in theater. I grew up on stage in Australia. I had my own theater company with my friend. We had, it was my world for a really long time. And then I came to the States, and that was it. I didn't touch it for probably 7 years or something. And then I had an opportunity to audition for this amazing play, this Broadway thing. I never thought I would, be auditioning for any kind of Broadway thing in my life, but here I was. And so of course I was nervous. It was a lot of dialogue, and I prepared and I went in, and the director said nothing at all to me the entire audition. Nothing. Maybe just like one comment. And typically when they're not saying anything and they're just like, okay, next scene, next scene, you know it's not going well. And my heart sank in. I was already crying by the time I got in the elevator, just thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know how to ride the bike anymore. Like I thought this would be like the bike that I got on, that I could ride again. And oh my gosh, I must have been terrible, or oh God, mortified. And then and of course, and then he came up to me and he did that, like just a pat on the back and said, "Thank you." It was one of those like, off you go, good effort kind of vibe. And I was devastated. And then 2 hours later, they said that they were flying me to New York as the only person that they were presenting to the Lincoln Center. Of course, I did the job. So I got the job. It's a happy story. It turned into a high, but it's such a lesson.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a brand new edition of Collider Ladies Night with a returning guest, Yvonne Strahovski. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you back. You were one of the early participants in Ladies Night, and we're still alive and thriving because when we were all in lockdown, you were willing to give the time and keep us afloat.
Oh, okay.
I mean it.
Well, that's
Appreciate
lovely.
that. Jim, I can't do it. I was revisiting our last Ladies Night conversation, and very, very briefly, you brought up your first trip to LA, your first trip to Hollywood, and it made me want to ask this. Do you remember, I guess, planning the goals you had for yourself for that trip? And then can you tell me how many of those expectations you wound up meeting on that first trip here?
Oh my gosh. I don't even think I had that many, to be honest. It wasn't really even my idea to come here. I was stalling. I knew I kind of wanted to at some point, but to be honest, the whole reason I didn't come was because I used to have terrible acne on terrible, terrible skin. And it was the reason why I thought they're not going to hire me, because I'd lost a couple jobs to having terrible acne on my face in Australia. And that was the sort of sad truth of it. And I remember being convinced by a group of friends to come to the States and do the whole thing. And here I was with a return ticket, going to go home 2 months later. And just kind of my goal was to just meet some casting agents and do some auditions and kind of get some relationships going. And that would be that, and then go back home. And then on day 3, I got the call. No, day 2, I got the call to go and test for the role of Sarah Walker on Chuck. And then the next day I had the job, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, like what is happening? and then it just and then I never used my return ticket. So I was in the States that whole year. Just I kept thinking, oh, okay, this is going to end, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to go home, and here we are 20 years later, feeling extremely grateful and in deep gratitude for how that panned out.
Chuck might be the answer to this particular question, but of all of the earliest gigs you booked, is there any particular one that you think, I guess, put your goals into perspective for you the most, like taught you the most about what you valued in the stories you would go on to tell, and also the on-set environment you would be a part of?
I mean, yeah, look, The Handmaid's Tale has really set the bar in so many ways of just how much there is to explore within one character, and just how much amazing writing, the scenes have been put in front of me to, go play and make something out of this. And it's just been incredible. It's been incredible to have been on a show for this long and never once be bored is just a testament to everyone who makes the show.
You have quite the team on this one. I'm so excited to dig into some of those details. Before I jump into Handmaids, though, there's 2 particular acting questions that I really wanted to ask that we didn't get to touch on last time. I'm obsessed with the fact that there's like 1,000,001 approaches to your work as an actor out there. And no matter what technique you use, it's the right technique as long as it feels right to you. So big 2-part question about that. Can you tell me something about your approach to the work that has stayed the same since day one, but then also a new acting technique that you've tried more recently?
Yeah, I'm really big on the emotional melody of the whole character journey, every single scene from beginning to the whole end, and stringing them all together. And what's the emotional melody we're telling? It's kind of like, I guess you could compare it to a song. And, when you learn the words to a song, you don't just remember the words. You remember the words because there's a melody to it. And the melody makes you feel a certain way. There's highs and lows. It makes you feel happy or sad or everything in between. And then the words have meaning. And when you hear a song, you put your own meaning into the song and into the words. And it means something to you personally if it strikes a chord with you. So I think that is my I guess you could call it a strategy.
I always use the word technique, and then I feel like I need to say, like, it doesn't have to be like an official technique.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't think of it as an official thing. It's just an automatic thing that I do. Like, what's the song here? What is the song? What's the melody that we're doing? And the emotions become the melody and the song. I think it's just kind of how I see it. And the answers are never black and white, and there's always a million answers, and they always get stuffed into the same box all at once. And I think that's what makes, because that's what a song is too. It's a million and different things and sounds and feelings in one.
What a beautiful way to describe that. I've never heard anyone put it quite that way before.
I don't think I've ever articulated it even in that, to that degree. I've thought of it in that, but yeah.
I like it.
So thanks for asking.
Of course. Now I need the back half of that. Something that you've tried for the first time more recently.
I think something that I've tried recently is probably trying to give less of a shit about.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Less of just whatever it is that we worry about as actors and as people as artists who put yourself out there, and you're doing your thing, you're doing your art, using your medium, and just really trying to just stop worrying. And I don't think that's easy. I don't think that comes easily. I think that is sort of earned through time. I mean, unless you're like some crazy magic unicorn person who can like be 20 and come into this business and be like, I don't give a shit. I don't know. I gave a shit a lot. And, obviously I still do. I think we all do in some way. We wouldn't be doing it if we didn't care. Mm-hmm. You do care. But I think there's something to be said for kind of being able to arrive in a space where you can just bravely move forward with whatever it is that you want to do with your art, and try not to think about the noise out there and just kind of step into that space. So yeah, I think that's probably something that I maybe recently tried.
Someone who over prepares and gives many a shit. I like to sometimes remind myself to take a breath, sit back, and just be in the moment.
Yes.
So my other favorite acting technique, you can even apply it specifically to Handmaids if you want. I love asking this question. Can you name a past co-star that you've worked with where like the second you met, you knew you were immediately in sync? But then I also want an example of a co-star with a different approach to the work who has challenged you to adapt and maybe even try something new and for the better.
Oh, man. Gosh, I mean, I feel like on this show, we are really lucky to have a group, like an ensemble of people who give a lot of shits, but who, not in that, like, no, but like really, really show up and want to play and are invested, and care. They, care about what we're doing. It's funny you asked me that. My brain also went to crew, like people that, and particularly DPs and cinematographers, because I find that's maybe not a relationship that's spoken enough about between an actor and a DP, and it's a really important one. I'll never forget, there's been sort of key DPs in my life where that have been so important, I think, in their ability to click in, and you click in together, and it's almost like you're dancing with them and performing with them. The way that they move with you, I remember feeling that with, Reed Morano, who directed, but she's also obviously a cinematographer, and she would take the camera. She's one of those people. Colin Watkinson, our DP, who was so great and supportive and directed my first short film that I made a year or two ago, and he's got, we have that, we just like lock in. And then we're doing Stateless also with Bonnie, our DP. I just will never forget locking in with her. So many scenes, just locking in, and you just take it to another level off the page. Something happens that never existed on the page before, and it's because you have another artist working with you And it doesn't just happen with the actors, it happens with people behind the camera too. And camera, people who just operate, who are not the DP, but also operators. And you have there's a magic that occurs there. You're with them, they're with you too. And it's amazing.
That description just brings me right to the train, particularly the mob scene in the first episode of season 6. I can't even imagine how close you have to be with your DP and your operators for something like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we get really intimate on the Handmaid's Tale.
That you do.
We get in everyone's business here. Yeah.
Okay, so the back half of that question now. So, or I guess, I mean, you could still go with DPs too. Someone who challenged you to adapt and try something new for the better.
You know, I think on this show, I'm going to say Bruce Miller, our showrunner. In the earlier seasons where I really, as the person who plays like, you know, the villain, it's easy to hate Serena. It's easy to judge her. I did have a hard time with that at the beginning because I couldn't do that. I had to be her and without that judgment. And there were a lot of times where I would read the script and occasionally be like, oh my goodness, this is going to be tough. And I didn't necessarily agree with, I remember just a couple pivotal moments where I was like, oh, I don't think this can happen this way. It just feels not right. And Bruce was so gracious with me. And we would sit down, we would have a coffee sometimes in Toronto and we would chat it out. And sometimes it would go on for a week, you know, this kind of back and forth of like, well, here's this. And then I would continue an email and he would be, okay, well, what about this? And da, 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 da. But like about the one thing, you know, him trying to sort of get me to see it in the way that it was originally written, me trying to get him to see it in a different light, but then finally arriving at what he had originally intended for it and being really pushed and challenged to sort of get just to find a way to walk that really sharp knife point that Serena walks sometimes between the good and the bad and that kind of conflict. I mean, it's so hard to explain. I don't even know if I'm doing a good job of explaining this,
you're doing a good job.
So I think he really kind of like had the patience to sort of really weave that with me.
I love the fact that both of your answers to that question was someone behind the scenes. It kind of like makes me want to, going forward, just completely reframe that because we don't talk about folks behind the scenes nearly enough.
Yeah.
And I feel like that influence on your character in particular is just so incredibly vital. I'll kind of build on that a little bit. Your answer there was making me think of this. It's a question I've started to ask a lot recently because another actor, and it's going back to the very beginning of The Handmaid's Tale, another actor was telling me that one of the most exciting things is when you jump into a new project and you're kind of like on unstable ground, but then you do that thing that makes you think like, I have just found who my character is. Did you have that moment with Serena in season 1? And if so, when?
Ooh, I think, wow, I was going to say I don't remember that moment. And then, of course, I thought of a moment. I think if there was ever a moment, it was the episode 3 in season 1 where I screamed at her, do you understand me? I got down on my knees. I was never supposed to get down on my knees in that scene. I was supposed to stay in the doorway and do it from there. And I remember just kind of, I don't know what came over me, why I was so courageous in this moment of like all these new people. And just, I remember just saying, I didn't tell anyone what I was going to do, but I just sort of said, oh, do you mind if I try something? I might not stay here. And, you know, and then I just went for it and got right in there. And that's the take they used. And that kind of felt like, yeah, I think I found her. I mean, that moment, which to me it's stuck. To me, that line is so important and iconic for the character. Do you understand me? And the repetition, we've used it throughout this series.
There is a lot of repetition. I kind of want to ask that same exact question again, but as it pertains to season 6, because there's a lot of repetition, but she's also like veering down quite a few different paths in season 6 and kind of having like shifting focus and ways of approaching things and differing priorities. Is there any particular moment in making season 6 that you found to be kind of like an aha moment, something that made you say to yourself, like, I fully get what her like top tier want and way of getting it is going to be in this particular season?
I don't know. I know, not like a clear, because I do feel by this point I'm like really aligned with, I could get her and I understand what she's thinking and feeling. And so that, I think that's like a few seasons ago that I've really sort of given up on I don't need to talk to Bruce anymore and hash it out for a week straight on the emails. Like, I got it.
It's so great that you know, because still, like, I haven't learned in 6 seasons every single step of the way when I think she's taking a bigger step down, like, a better path. And I'm like, oh no, now I see her going, like, don't do that. Why are you doing that again?
I know, yeah.
And it happens again and again.
Yeah, I know. It's a
but
lot.
The reason why it works so well is you make her intentions clear every single time, so it always works, but it's the most frustrating thing in the world.
I know.
All right, getting into some specifics here. The very first thing I had on my little roadmap list here was the conversation that Serena has with June on the train. And I don't know, I kind of want to ask about working with Lizzie on that entire conversation, but there's one particular line I really wanted to focus on. It's when she tells June, you will find a way to bring your family back together, June. That is your gift. Can you tell me maybe a little bit about like finding the right tone for a line like that? Because personally, as I'm watching it, I don't know, like I feel the sincerity and the warmth, and it makes a moment like that leap off the screen.
Yeah. When you take it out of context, it sounds utterly ridiculous for her to say something like that to Serena.
I also did a terrible read of that line.
No, but it, just read out of it just sounds like such a slap in the face line. I remember wanting to not play it that way, obviously. It was a genuine, she genuinely is saying it to her and she genuinely means it. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's sort of a credit to kind of history that the two characters have and the way the writers have sort of navigated their relationship and their story and where we've arrived. And it is that complicated and that nuance that you can have Serena say something like that to her, and it sounds utterly ridiculous out of context, but she can mean it genuinely, and that's the nature of their relationship. But, 1 minute it is genuine and there's some kind of a respect there, maybe a mutual respect even, and then the next minute it's just, they want to kill each other.
And it just ping-pongs so much.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to move to later in that particular episode when when her identity is revealed and it basically turns into a mob scene. I'm very curious what it's like from your perspective filming something like that. So from the viewer perspective, we feel the chaos. Are you able to feel that on set, the chaos and the claustrophobia of what's happening around you?
Yeah, 100%, for sure. I mean, I definitely felt terrifying reading, and I was terrified for Serena and the baby in the moment. It was pretty easy. I mean, we are actually on a set that is a built train with these amazing, these hundreds of screens on either side of the windows that create the picture as if we're moving. So you genuinely can feel motion sickness, even though the actual body of the train isn't going anywhere. And then, we've got all these amazing guest actors, background artists who are creating the mob. And
they're all so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing and intense. And that whole episode is really fun. Amazing to have done that. Incredible
from a performance perspective. And I love her eye and how she directs it too, because it's not easy bringing one single space to life quite that way.
Right. And and I think that's also the most interesting part, is that you would think that this one singular space is is going to be boring where everything takes place here, but it's absolutely the opposite.
It's so good. It's so effective. All right, I'm jumping to episode 2 now. All right, this is more of like a theory type question that just crossed my mind as I was watching it. So in episode 2, when Joseph comes to visit her at the place she's staying at, you have a walk and talk. And during that conversation, she's kind of like pushing back on what he's pitching her until he tells her, like, the eyes know where you are. It was making me wonder, if you took that line out of the equation, would she have turned him down and stayed there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean... Oh, hang on. Hang on.
I had my own ideas. I'm not going to blurt them out yet.
I mean, yeah. Well, this is how my brain works. When I read it, I go, and I, oh, wait a sec. Oh, but then there's this, and this, and this, and this. And you go, okay.
I think she would have said no, but she would have wound up going down that path eventually.
Eventually, I think because of her child, she would have given it a fair go, staying where, yeah. But she just probably would have got bored eventually. When she felt totally safe in the world and enough time had passed, I think she would be like, I want to be the queen again.
That was another thing that crossed my mind while watching that episode, particularly for your character and also for June, is when it said 2 months later, I'm like, how do the two of them sit still in one place for 2 months? They are like always doing and planning. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But then they both act, and they act quite big. Wait, before I get to episode 3, I do want to touch on the speech you give at the end of episode 2 at the dinner table.
Oh, yeah.
It's after she says grace, and then she gets back up and she gives a speech with her intentions. And the one line there I wrote down was, "The world is broken and I am being called to heal it." I believe that she believes that line is true. But at that point in the show, do you think she has belief in herself that she can do it?
I think she believes in herself, yes. And I think she's empowering herself by, saying all that. And she's good at standing up and making a speech. Like she knows how to do it. She knows it. And she, her ideals might not be in the right place, but she thinks they are.
She's too good at
and then seeing Naomi do such a woeful job of saying a prayer too, I think is just like, all right, move over. I got this.
Her comedic beats this season are just like through the roof.
I know. She really has the best lines.
I feel like I'm jumping way ahead with this, but there's a particular line with a chessboard, and she comes in and she tells Charlotte, you have art class, and then she repeats the line in a way that just made me cackle out loud. I'm like, why am I hysterical in this moment?
Oh yeah, there's one. I haven't seen that one, but at the one where it's something about size matters.
Yes. That's another great.
That
She's
was
chiming in every
chiming in,
seconds.
just in that way.
It's so good. It tickles me every single time.
Yeah.
So now we're in episode 3, and she's essentially going back to Gilead. She's going back to New Bethlehem. When she gets there, I'll make this a big overarching question, actually. What do you think is the biggest difference between what she thought it meant to be a good leader at the very beginning of this show and what she thinks it means to be a good leader now in her role in New Bethlehem?
I'm thinking that I want there to be a difference, but I don't know that there is. I think that she thinks that she's been given this gift to be the leader that she always wanted to be and that she should have been, or Gilead could have and should have been, where women still had a voice. And so here's her chance to shine again. I think the only thing that's changed is that the rules happen to be different and women are suddenly allowed to have some rights back and not have a handmaid. And so here we go then, back on the podium again. I think her style is still the same.
There's a line that it's right after she says, I did terrible things because I felt powerless. And so I exerted power over those around me, and that she doesn't want to do that anymore. But maybe unintentionally, she's still doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I think she thinks she's learned lessons for sure. But I think the style of her leadership is no different.
Oh, what a headspace to be in. I haven't seen the tail end, but I feel like all of this is making sense right now with where I'm at.
Okay.
But I don't trust what's going to happen in the last 2 episodes, I'll tell you that.
Oh, dear.
Here's another big burning question I have. This kind of brings us into episodes 4 and 5, when the relationship with Commander Wharton kind of comes to the forefront here. I guess I'll break this up into 2 questions here. The first thing is, what do you think draws her to him most? Is it genuine attraction? Is it more power? Is it what Aunt Lydia says, the possibility of having more children? What's the number one thing?
Flattery and safety come to mind.
He's very good at that.
She's terrible. Serena needs to be slapped in the face. But yeah, sadly, I think the flattery helps. I think she's starving for love and attention, and she has been the whole time on this show. I think she's desperate. And to have someone genuinely, because he's genuinely showing an interest in her, and I think he genuinely does adore her and like her. I think that's excellent for Serena. And obviously, the stakes are much higher. She has a child, and this is a built-in offered protection. Like, if someone genuinely does like her, then this is a very good practical move also. It ticks a lot of boxes. I think, she's obviously going to be practical about it in a self-serving way, despite the fact that I still think they have a genuine connection.
I'm wondering if the answer to this part of the question is going to be different. What would you say is the number one thing about him that makes her trust him enough?
No, I think it's actually the show of character, in the sense that he is he shows us, the audience and Serena, that he is a commander that has more integrity. She does buy that. She does, and I think he does. I sound like Serena. But in the scheme of all the commanders, he is the one that shows the most integrity and is well-mannered and cultured and understands children and has no judgment about her having a children with another man that he would have to take on. There's all these things, I think it's a genuine thing. And just like, in the aftermath of this whole I know you're not there yet in your question, but when we get to that, I think he genuinely thinks they're on the same page when he does this terrible thing that's going to happen that we're not allowed to talk about. We talked about this a lot. Like, he genuinely thinks, like, what do you mean? I thought we were on the same page about having this family, and that's what we wanted, and this is great. Like, it's not a bad thing. And so it's this, like, everyone has their own goggles on.
What keeps me on the edge of my seat so much with this? I have to wind down with you.
I'm sweating.
I'll end with these two particular questions. One of them I really wanted to ask, because another actor brought this up to me recently, and I realized, like, I don't ever ask about it. She had told me we often talk about what it takes for an actor to get into a character, but not out of it, like to shed and then move on. So what was that experience like for you, wrapping Handmaid's Tale with Serena, getting out of that role and, getting out of it for good?
Yeah, when I go to work on a daily basis, I couldn't get out of her shoes quick enough. I mean, it's just, the outfit, put it on the coat hanger. Thank you very much. Goodbye. And then on the last day, I thought, wait a second. What is happening? What? No, I wasn't ready at all to say goodbye to her. And I totally underestimated how that would feel. I think, we spend a lot of time hating Serena and judging her, which is great. She's hateable. She's unlovable to a point. Yeah, she's unlovable. She's so many of these terrible things. But I didn't really see that I loved her in the end. And that's the hardest thing to part with, as I get teary.
You should be very proud, which will lean into this last question that we end every single Collider Ladies Night on.
Okay.
So in this industry, we give each other awards, and that's super cool. And I'll also say you deserve way more Emmy recognition for your role in the entirety of this show. But anyway, that's besides the point in this particular question. I find that nobody in this business tells themselves good job as much as they should. So I want to know something you accomplished making season 6 of Handmaid's Tale that you'll always be able to look back on and say, really proud of what I did there.
I think the emotional melody in the song that I made with Serena. Yeah, that song reference.
I'll take that.
The music that I gave her, I guess. Yeah.
I like that. Bookend the conversation quite nicely.
Yeah.
I am going to say big congratulations on everything you've accomplished on all of Handmaid's Tale now, and also everything coming your way in the future.
Thank you.
Come back to Ladies Night.
Oh my gosh, thanks. You're the best. Thank you.